The Cincinnati Bengals are in an interesting spot as a franchise. They're both trying to rebuild and trying to compete at the same time. They brought in a new head coach, but they have the same quarterback. It's interesting. And in this 2019 NFL draft, that's exactly what this draft was about. They're trying to rebuild, retool, but they're also trying to compete at the same time. And I guess that's the NFL in general, but when you're trying to go from bad to good, you kind of just need to completely go all the way bad and then go all the way good, sort of like the Colts have done. But the Cincinnati Bengals, they're going to try and do this their way. And this is my analysis on their 2019 NFL draft. My thoughts, my draft grade. Gronk, spike the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let's get into it. Starting off with their first round pick in Jonah Williams. We all knew that the Bengals wanted to get an offensive lineman in the first round. That's exactly what they did. Jonah Williams can not only play tackle, but he can also play guard. And my interesting thought was possibly they would have Bobby Hart at right tackle because of the contract they gave him, but also playing Jonah Williams at right guard, solving possibly two positions. But instead, they'll likely have him play at right tackle, keep Alex Redmond at right guard, and then put Bobby Hart on the bench as a high-priced backup, which I don't know if that's the best way to spend your money. But regardless, injuries do happen at the tackle position, and it's an important position to have depth at. And when you really look at it last season, the Cincinnati Bengals started off very well, and they have a talented roster in certain aspects. They have A.J. Green. They have Tyler Boyd. They now have drafted Billy Price, Jonah Williams on their offensive line. Cordy Glenn's a pretty good left tackle. They have Tyler Eifert, and they have Joe Mixon, and Andy Dalton's not terrible. Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap. They have players overall. It's just forming a team, getting that coaching behind the team, and possibly the quarterback position will need an upgrade very soon. But the Bengals are going to continue to roll with Andy Dalton, which it was a question. Maybe they draft a quarterback this year, maybe they don't. And they decide to go offensive line instead. And I don't think the Bengals are going to be a playoff team this year. I don't really think they're going to be one of the better teams in the league. And they're looking like the least talented team in their own division. But it's not to say that they're terrible and without talent at the same time. In the second round, the Bengals decided to go with a tight end, Drew Sample from Washington. Very interesting pick. I'm not a huge fan of this one because the Bengals do have tight ends. I mean, they have at least two deep, and now you're adding three deep with Sample. I know Tyler Eifert's been banged up and injured, but this is not an immediate need. This was a pick built for the future, obviously. And I don't know if the value was really there at 52 overall for Drew Sample. He really didn't prove in college that he was a great pass catcher. 25 catches for 252 yards and 3 touchdowns. There's potential. He's a good blocker, and he's a good all-around tight end, but I don't know if he's a great pass catcher. And in today's NFL, you need the guy at tight end to be a great pass catcher. And I don't know in the second round if he was a great value there. So I'm not a huge fan of this Drew Sample pick in the second round. In the third round, they go with Jermaine Pratt, outside linebacker from NC State. We also knew that not only offensive line was a need, but defensively linebacker was a need. And there was potential there for them to pick one in the first round. They didn't. So instead, they get Pratt in the third round, and he could potentially be a starter on this team right away. This is one of their big positions that they really needed to upgrade. And because of Vontaze Burfict being gone, he might fill that spot at outside linebacker. We'll see if he does, but I think that's a good need pick at the third round. In the fourth round, Ryan Finley, great pick. I really love Ryan Finley. If you guys haven't already seen it, I made a whole video on Ryan Finley and why I thought he was the most underrated quarterback in this draft class. And I still do believe that. I think Jeff Driscoll didn't do a terrible job as a backup quarterback last year when Andy Dalton went down. But Ryan Finley is going to instantly be an upgrade there. And I would argue Ryan Finley is very similar to what Andy Dalton gives as a quarterback. I think Ryan Finley has potential to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. He has good decision-making skills, very good accuracy and touch on the football. Not like a super strong arm, but he is athletic and he can make more plays outside the pocket than Andy Dalton can. And yeah, just a really smart quarterback. The thing about Finley was he's a little bit older than some of these other quarterbacks, which is the reason why he wasn't like looked at as a first round or second round pick. But in the fourth round to get a quarterback like him, who I feel like is very pro ready, that gives them options behind Dalton and also potentially to force Dalton into playing even better and push him. But also if Dalton does get injured again, Finley can come in there and be a better player than Driscoll, I do believe. They add to their defensive line with Wren from Arizona State in the fourth round as well, and just adding some more depth into the interior defensive line. Geno Atkins is there. Their other starting D tackle is Andrew Billings. They have Ryan Glasgow, but that is a position of need because that second, third spot is kind of up in the air, so adding some competition there is not a bad idea. They add Michael Jordan. Maybe he's going to be the GOAT. Maybe he's not. Center, guard. I think, that, again, adding to your offensive line, not a bad idea, especially in the interior where I think they need help. I think they're solid at center with Billy Price, but Alex Redmond, Bowling, I think they could use a player in there, so another player that could contribute and maybe even start right away. We'll see. And then you have a couple other picks with Trayvon Williams, who I think is nice to have because he's more of the pass-catching type of variety of running back. He can do a lot of different things. He's a smaller guy, but he can kick return as well. And 5'8", 206 pounds. I think the only thing is, like, how does his height kind of transfer to the NFL? But overall, he is a guy just to add to the depth of the running back position. And it used to be that the Bengals had such great depth at this position. Giovanni Bernard's still there. They have Joe Mixon, who's a stud, but adding a third running back in the mix is not a bad idea. When I really look at the flaws of this draft, I think they could have potentially addressed the safety position a little bit better. They did not even spend a pick on the safety position. They did spend 2 picks on the linebacker position. They could have spent a higher pick. I would have liked them to potentially spend their second round pick on the linebacker position, but of course this wasn't a strong draft for the linebacker position, so I understand it. Overall, though, I mean, they hit most of their needs. They have a pretty talented offense in terms of skill positions with A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd, John Ross, who they spent a high pick on. Jonah Williams will definitely improve the offensive line. They have the tight ends. They have the running back. I think it really comes down to, for the Bengals, improving steadily their defense in their front seven a little bit more. They didn't spend a pick on a pass rusher, which many thought they might, but I like Carl Lawson quite a bit. I also like Carlos Dunlap, Sam Hubbard they drafted last year. Overall, like I said, I would have liked to have seen the Bengals address the safety position a little bit better than they did, but they did address most of their needs, and as a team that I don't really think is going to be competing this year, a lot of them are going to be for the future. I think for the Bengals, it just comes down to their quarterback play, though. If they have good quarterback play this year, they can be a decent team overall. But I think you're going to have to replace Andy Dalton in the next year or so. And probably next year's draft is going to be the time to replace him. After the first season of Zach Taylor, he's going to probably be looking for a new quarterback. Whether that's Ryan Finley or not is an interesting question to be had. I would be intrigued to see how he plays in the preseason. Also, if he even gets a chance this year if Andy Dalton gets injured. So look out for that, possibly Finley being the future quarterback, at least for a few years, to give him a chance to see if it happens. But if he's not the answer, then the Bengals could look for a high draft pick with a quarterback in the coming years, probably as soon as next year. Gronk, like the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you enjoyed this video, comment below your opinion on the Bengals draft. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Where do you stand on them as a team this year? It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View. Thanks for watching. Peace out.